In the kingdom of Burgundy, the warriors of Worms, the capital city of Burgundy, together with their king, set out to a place that was raided the night before. Surveying the area, a man named Hagen sees a horse walking towards them from afar, but seeing nobody on top of the animal, takes it as nothing. Soon, his attention is drawn to the horse again, and this time, someone springs up from the side of the horse and strikes the king. Hagen holds the king in his arms as he breathes his last. Like and subscribe to my channel, and also turn on the notification bell to get notified when a new video drops. Back in the city, the king's son Gunther succeeds his father's throne. He is faced with the problems of the people, the war he must wage to save his people. After many suggestions from his cabinet, he decides to marry his sister Kriemhild to a king in another kingdom to form an alliance with them and win the war. Hagen didn't like the decision, but as it is the word of the king, it must be obeyed. Hagen tells Kriemhild the king's decision. Kriemhild is not happy, but for the safety of her father's kingdom, she accepts the decision. That night, there is a heavy storm outside. Hagen is told that 11 men are camping outside the gate. He goes to check and hears a voice, but when he turns, he sees nothing. The next morning, the campers comes to the gate. Hagen gives orders to get the archers ready and also to let the men in. Their leader is taken to meet the king. Inside, he introduces himself as Siegfried of Xanten, the son of Siegmund. The king is happy to hear this. He says their fathers were allies and fought well beside each other. It turns out Siegfried is the king of Xanten, but left his kingdom because he didn't want to be the king. He challenges King Gunther to a duel, but Hagen steps up and says he can only get to his king through him. He challenges Hagen to a king-servant fight, but the king says if they must fight, they must all fight together because they are one big family. Siegfried, seeing this, retreats and accepts the king's offer to stay as a guest. Meanwhile, outside the king's palace, Kriemhild hears the noise. She takes a peek and sees a child on a horse. But another second, the child's face changes to an old face. This scares Kriemhild, and she retreats in fear. She meets with Hagen and tells him what she saw. She tells him the child she saw is a dwarf that crawls into people's dreams and causes disaster. She suggests the guests leave the palace as soon as possible, but Hagen tells her the king has made his decision and can't easily take back his word.
That night, Hagen has a nightmare. He sees the dwarf in his dream. The dwarf tells him about the scars on his body and says he knows how he got them.
His city was set on fire and nobody survived the attack except him. In that fire, he lost his parents and loved ones. In between the chaos, a dragon flew in, and he woke up. Outside, he sees horses going crazy while some are dead. A woman tells him that some people saw the dwarf last night, and afterwards, the horses went mad. Kriemhild tries to calm her horse, but it breaks free and flees. Hagen and Kriemhild chase after it. They see the horse drinking water from a stream. Kriemhild approaches and touches it, but it ran off again into the woods. Kriemhild becomes sad, and Hagen consoles her. He tells her the dwarf is truly creeping into their dreams, as she said, and they shouldn't give them power. Back in the city, Hagen goes to meet with the king but hears voices. It turns out the king is having a meal with his brothers and Siegfried's men. He overhears Siegfried talking about a distant queen, Brunhild, who is able to cast a spell on a man she hasn't seen before. The spell will make the man come to her. He tells Gunther that the queen warriors are made up of women who are also very strong. Gunther asks if Siegfried has seen the queen before, and he says yes. He's gone there before, seen the queen, and came back to his kingdom. Siegfried asks Gunther about their women, and Gunther says their women are in their chambers, as it's a proper thing for the women to remain in their chambers. After the dinner, Siegfried curiously walks into Kriemhild's room. Kriemhild is startled when she sees him and demands he leaves her room, but he ignores her. Kriemhild looks him in the eyes and tells him he has no respect for the king nor anybody and should leave their city. Siegfried tells her he will fit into their city perfectly and leaves. King Gunther and Hagen are seen having a discussion. Hagen tries to discourage Gunther about marrying his sister off to King Lombard of another kingdom. Gunther expresses his fears of losing his kingdom to war. Marrying Kriemhild off to Lombard will strengthen the security of the kingdom, as Lombard has great warriors, and having him as an ally will be a great way of winning the war. Hagen tells him they can win the war on their own if he makes their warriors stronger. Gunther agrees, saying he trusts him. He asks him what he thinks of the queen Siegfried talked about. Hagen tells him never to trust what Siegfried says and should be careful about him. Outside, Hagen is practicing with the soldiers when Siegfried enters with his men. He distracts the soldiers by playing with his men. He challenges the soldiers to a fight. Hagen steps forward and approaches him. He picks up a spear and throws it at Hagen, but he catches it and throws it away. Hagen warns him to go elsewhere and play with his men and stop distracting their practice session. Later, Hagen goes to look for Siegfried, but sees the dwarf. The dwarf tells him Siegfried is a strong warrior who defeated his old master, the beast, bathed in his blood, and brought a piece of it to him to forge a sword. And with that sword, he has defeated many and won many fights. He tells Hagen they shouldn't have let Siegfried stay behind, that he finally found what he wanted, which is a family, and now it's too late to make him leave. Meanwhile, Siegfried meets King Gunther. Gunther is surprised to see him and asks if he didn't meet with his marshal Hagen, but Siegfried says he didn't see Hagen. He proposes to the king to let him join his warriors to fight the upcoming war, and the king is happy after hearing he's a good fighter. Hagen comes out and sees people gathered. He looks ahead and sees the king presenting Siegfried to the people as someone who will help them defeat the enemies. The people are happy and hail the king. The next day, the troop marches out to war. They camp somewhere and make a plan on their next move. Gunther comes to Siegfried, lies beside him, and talks about the war. He tells him he's been thinking about the queen. Sig tells him the queen is calling out to the warrior in him. That night, Sig goes out with his horse and attacks the opposing king. The next day, he brings his head and throws it to Hagen. Says their opponent will fight in fear since their king has been killed, and they should push the attack. Hagen tries to stop the men, but they follow Sig and rush out. While fighting, Sig fights like a beast to the amazement of the other soldiers. Hagen fights, but at some point, seeing one of his warriors being slayed, loses focus. Someone strikes him from behind, and he loses his eye. An enemy approaches him but is stopped by Sig, who kills him. Then Hagen passes out. Back in the city, Gunther is told to show his face to his people who are continuously chanting his name. He approaches the door, and just as a smile flashes across his face, he hears the people chanting Siegfried's name. The smile on his face vanishes. But soon he comes out with Siegfried, and the people are happy. Siegfried goes into the crowd, and the people celebrate him as the hero. Kriemhild is seen taking care of Hagen, who lost his eye in the battle. She hears people chanting Siegfried's name and comes out. She sees Siegfried and other soldiers having a good time with the dead lying among them. Kriemhild approaches Sig and tells him he's disrespecting the dead by jubilating instead of being sad about the loss of the soldiers. But Sig tells her they don't keep sad faces when they lose their soldiers in a battle. They celebrate the dead and shout happily at the top of their voices so the dead are not sad, but also be happy. As Kriemhild turns to leave, Sig asks about Hagen. She says Hagen is struggling with his life, and she's not sure if he will make it. He tells her to go with the dwarf, as he can heal him. Inside Hagen's room, the dwarf tells him he knows how his kingdom got destroyed. He tells him it was men who set his city on fire, and not the dragon. The dragon rescued him from the fire and saved him. Seeing the dragon, Hagen screams, and Kriemhild hears the shout from outside his room. The next day, he wakes up. He rides out of the city to where the soldiers were buried. Soon, Sig approaches him and says he's glad to see him alive. Hagen tells him he disobeyed his orders by killing the opponent's king alone. Sig says he doesn't follow orders and does things when he feels like. Back to the city, Kriemhild and Sig ride out on a horse, and Hagen watches them leave. They ride across the woods and come to a place. Kriemhild asks Hagen why the dwarf follows him around, and he tells her it's because he killed his former master, the dragon. Kriemhild asks him more questions, which irritates Sigs, and he asks her to stop asking him questions, still in the woods. Kriemhild hears her name and whispers. Sig tells her to focus and keep on walking, but she keeps hearing her name behind her. When she turns, she sees a tree in the image of her father looking at her. She runs off and starts crying, venting out her anger on how her father and brother wanted to sell her out, all in the name of allying with a strong kingdom. Sig consoles her. That night, they made out in the woods, with the war still ongoing in the neighboring villages. King Gunther becomes worried. His brother tells him Lombard city has been conquered, and the leader of the war is a man named Etzel. The king orders that the men should be trained harder for the war that is coming. He also speaks of Brunhild every now and then, and this makes Hagen curious to know more about her. Hagen goes to the dwarf. He promises to set him free if he tells him about Brunhild and Siegfried. The dwarf tells him of how Sig started hearing the queen's voice. He followed the voice across the sea and finally met her. They fall in love, and after some time, Sig left without a word. And this broke the queen's heart. Hagen asks him if Sig still loves the queen, and the dwarf says more than ever. Hagen opens the door to let the dwarf out, but when he looks inside, he was gone. He goes inside to check and sees no one. The next day, Hagen meets with Kriemhild. She tells him of her experience with Sig in the woods. Hagen tries to discourage her, telling her he shouldn't trust Siegfried and should be careful because he will make her unhappy, but Kriemhild shuns him, telling him Sieg will ask for her hand very soon, and she will accept because she wants him to be part of Burgundy, and with him, they could change Burgundy. She tells him to tell her brother, since he's the only one he listens to. Hagen meets with Gunther and tells him of Siegfried's intention. Gunther is happy and says everybody likes Sig, and he's a royal blood, so he can't refuse him. But Hagen tells him not to refuse. Instead, he should give him a condition. During a dinner, King Gunther announces Siegfried's intention to marry Kriemhild, and he accepts. Kriemhild and Sig are happy, but Gunther says he has a condition. He says Sig will have to take him to Queen Brunhild to ask for her hand and bring her back to the kingdom as his queen. So together, they will defeat the battle ahead. Sig is not happy with the condition, but accepts it. With able warriors, they set out on their journey across the sea. The wind becomes freezing, their ship wrecks, and the sea washes them ashore. Hagen reunites with Gunther and the rest of the men. They continue their journey on foot. Soon, they are surrounded, and Sig tells them to lower their weapons. The queen's warriors march up to them, and Sig demands that they be taken to the queen. Inside the city, they are separated. Hagen is seen talking with the female head warrior, who tells him that for Gunther to marry the queen, he will have to face the queen in a fight, and if he fails, he will end up like the people before him. Looking ahead, Hagen sees a pile of human skulls, the skulls of the numerous men who failed to defeat the queen.
Hagen meets with Gunther afterwards. He tells him he feels like he has met with the queen before. He shows him the sword the queen gave him, and he will fight to show how much he wants her. Seeing the sword, Hagen realizes there is a problem. Sig wakes up in a lonely chamber. He sees the queen and has a discussion. He tells the queen that he's no longer the man she knows. He has changed and has another woman on his mind now. The next day, they meet and plan on how to defeat the queen. Gunther says he can do it, but Sig warns him the queen is not an easy match for him. Not even he can defeat the queen alone. He suggests they seek the help of the dwarf. Inside a cave, the dwarf takes their blood and makes a concoction out of it. He makes Sig's and Hagen enter a water pool. Holding them, he orders Gunther to drink the concoction. The man struggles underwater for a long time and finally drops. Outside, King Gunther is given a sword, with the condition that if he's able to get the queen's blood on the sword, he will take the queen home. Confidently, he starts fighting with the queen. It wasn't an easy fight for him. The queen breaks his hand, but finally, he was able to give the queen a cut on her lap. When he won, the men under the water resurrected and came out of the water. The king takes the queen home with her warriors. Back in the kingdom, the people were attacked, some dead and some wounded. The king becomes worried as the enemies have closed in on them. Sig marries his sister, and Brunhild becomes the queen of Burgundy. The queen is not happy with Sig. She comes to the training ground and gives him a good beating. The men are afraid seeing how strong the queen is. She leads them to battle against Etzel and his men and conquers. The warriors jubilate on having won the battle, and for the first time, Hagen dances with Sig's and is happy with him. The kingdom returns to normal, and the people live in peace.
Like and subscribe to my channel, and also turn on the notification bell to get notified when a new video drops.